Hey everyone, I have said all the way through that I'm a mum of 3 small children, and it's so important that I get these videos done that I'm just breastfeeding while I'm doing this, so I hope you're not put off. This is little Solomon making an appearance. He just needs a little bit of a top up. So in this section, I am talking about the how some charts don't seem to how some charts just have a harder time than others, and there is a reason for this. You can always see it in astrology, when you hear about how some people just seem to have trauma after trauma after trauma, and how also something happens and then lives change. As you listen to this recording, you'll see some different examples of charts that I've worked with in my practice, and I've been able to follow the journeys of some people. Now, these are all completely anonymous. Funnily enough, there's a relatedness around them, where charts are difficult, but also where it feels like people go through a sort of never-ending series of traumas. One thing that I would say is most people that contact an astrologer in the first place, they contact them when they're having a hard time. So that is why I've got a higher level of people that go through trauma. In particular right now, and I'm sure most astrologers and coaches would have this. Coaches probably don't know this, the birth charts of the people they work with, but astrologers most likely will have a higher level of Capricorns and Pisces and Taurians at the moment, or people with a very strong aspect in the sign of Capricorn and Pisces and Uranus. Capricorn and Pisces mainly, and the reason being is Pluto and very recently Saturn and Jupiter have all been in the sign of Capricorn, creating transformation opportunities. And Neptune has this very difficult to put your finger on it kind of energy, and it also often brings up mental health issues or feelings of depression or feelings of not knowing the next right step to take. So it brings up a lot of confusion, and so a lot of people need guidance when they have a Neptune or Pluto event going on. So in this section, I've just literally shared a few. I haven't said any personal stories, but just shared why some people will go through more trauma than other people, and it's because of the layout of their chart. And so it's always worth looking at that in your own chart. If it seems like you've had a lot of trauma and a sort of a time where it's just been one thing after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, you might find that you've got a level of this going on in your chart too. The beauty of it is when you get to the end of these patterns, these sacred patterns, then your life just seems to go really calm and serene. And for the last 10 years in particular, yeah, I've had ups and downs, but the main challenges in my life have been really usurped. And it literally started with meeting my husband. That was the best thing that ever happened to me. And the level of fulfillment that I was looking for has kind of come to me in the form of my relationship and my children. But that's not how everyone feels fulfillment. That's just the fulfillment that I was looking for. So, our charts reflect how we might seek fulfillment and how we handle our trauma. So I hope you find this interesting, and I'll just give a little wave from Solomon.
Okay, so we're exploring whether charts are created equally or not. And they're equal in the fact that they're all a circle. They've all got the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We can add Chiron in. They've all got their ascendant. They've got the 12 houses. And that's where the likenesses stop. So they all have the same things. Like their charts are made of the same material, so to speak. They've got the same ingredients. But, one chart might have a little bit more Mars put into the recipe. Another might have a big old chunk of Jupiter. And someone might have a real heavy weight of Pluto chucked into their chart. So according to the time, place and date that they were born, that really determines where the weighting is in their chart. And so the first slide I'm going to show you is two people born on the same day, different times and in different countries. So you get a feel for the actual differences that can make to a chart. It really does make a difference. So as we look through these charts, I want to discuss how long it might take for somebody to get through something, because I've seen the charts of high achievers. I've seen the charts of people who don't achieve as much, and possibly people who are very unhappy. And I've seen that some people with higher achieving charts can have a really awful chart, and some people with a kind of really low self-esteem can have a really great chart. So a lot of it does also depend on the way the person uses it. So the way the native, i.e. the person whose chart it is using their chart. And I think I can understand whether someone's going to challenge themselves and learn through the process of examining their life or not. Thankfully, most people that come to me who seek out the services of a coach or astrologer, most of those people are people that do want to learn and do want to inform themselves and make their lives better. And they want to have a level of control. They want to be able to explore life with a little bit of foresight and to have hindsight about what's happened. So Let's see. I've got just to say 6 charts, and I've included my own in there as well, because it feels a little unfair to just keep putting all these other charts and commenting on other people's personalities and not putting myself to the same scrutiny. So I've left that one till last. So this first chart, you can see it's got a lot of trines in, so it's got a lot of natural, beautiful energy. You know, it's kind of healing energy, it's creative energy, especially with this Mars. So this Mars down here creates action. And it's in a lovely trine with the moon. So this person probably has a lot of natural energy and natural health and vitality. The moon is our emotions, and Mars is our vitality. And when they're really well aspected, it usually confers quite good health and good sort of emotional boundaries. Venus in a trine with Mars is great. This person is able to express themselves fully and be understood, and they've got a really nice balance between, you know, the feminine and the masculine. Now, they've got Uranus and Saturn in a conjunction. I should say the moon and Venus are in a conjunction, so that's a lovely aspect. It's really kind and empathic. Uranus and Saturn in a conjunction is quite difficult. And then there's Neptune also in a conjunction with Saturn and also in a conjunction with Uranus. Yikes, that's just got even harder. And then we've also got the Sun in a conjunction with Neptune. And the Sun is also in a really wide conjunction with Saturn, but it still is. Some people can consider that the orb can go up to 10 degrees. But what we do have here is what looks like a stellium. So even though these last 2 planets are out of conjunction with each other, each one is daisy chaining into the other. Now, this kind of energy creates a very strong focus in the chart. And if there were lots of other things kind of sucking up some of this energy and giving it something to hook onto, it could be really easy to work with. But what you'll also see is we've got this opposition with Chiron. Now, Chiron is known as the wounded healer, and Chiron is the go-to asteroid that I use in every single one of my charts. And Chiron shows us the wounds that we carry with us from childhood, that we're unable, or sometimes we're able, but it's that like little Achilles heel type thing, you know, that soft spot that we've got, that little vulnerability that we're not able to get over. It's that ouch spot in our lives. And so at some level, this person has a very ouchy experience because they experience the ouch from Uranus. So changes, any kind of spontaneous changes, the ouch raises up. When there's a father figure or an authority, because that is often represented by Saturn, or there's some need for an organising factor outside of themselves, that also creates some kind of ouch experience. Neptune, which is about our creativity, but also our connection to God or connection to meaning. There's some ouch there as well. You know, there is this feeling that, or a disconnection between the ability to find reason and understand reason in a kind of spiritual sense, but that's kind of negated by the ouch, the tension. So this is pretty big, and in this position at this time, we've also got Neptune. We've got the Sun in a square to Mars. That makes them ready for a fight. You know, that they feel like they have to defend their personality. Even if they don't need to, they feel, because of this ouch, that they have to really defend themselves. So this is quite difficult. But there's a lot of trine energy. So this person's naturally talented and insightful and creative and spontaneous and highly capable. And there is a very strong dislike of authority and also a natural sense of authority, because all these planets here, from Uranus to the Sun, are all in the sign of Capricorn, and the ascendant sign is almost in the sign of Capricorn. So there is this real need for, you know, given that this is all in the first house, this person needs to be in charge. And there's this spiky old square going up to the midheaven, showing that as they achieve, they really want to achieve because they are a very sort of strong led person. They definitely want to achieve, and they struggle with authority. So there's a lot of things going on here. Now, when there's an outside planet moving through the charts, when it connects to some of these planets, it's going to create a difficulty. Now, the slowest moving planet is Pluto, and Pluto takes 248 years to go all the way around. But where Pluto is just lagging behind these guys, Pluto catches up at some point, say in the late teens, early 20s, and leading up to the 30s. It will take Pluto approximately this length of time. That will be about 30 years. So this person was growing up probably not that bothered for a lot of it, because Neptune would have kept running forwards and wouldn't have encountered too much, only Mars. But in fact, Neptune hasn't even got there yet, because Neptune's here at the moment. So Neptune's not going to even present Mars with an issue here. Saturn has already done a circulation, so that this person's already had their Saturn return. So that would have been one challenge. The Jupiter return age 12 would have emphasized things around about the age of 7 before coming back. And Uranus, which is currently here, would have caused some difficulties around about 5 or 6 years ago when it was going over this spot here. Now, or I think approximately 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe, I'm going to say 5 years ago. But Pluto is the slowest moving planet, and it has literally taken this long, up until say 30 years to get this far. Now, when Pluto, which destroys the ego and wants humility almost, Pluto is a real healer. Pluto takes us to our darkness. It absolutely takes us to the core of our being. And we have to kind of let go of all of the thoughts that we have about ourselves and let go of them. While we're holding on to our darkness, all it does is create more and more darkness for us. So when Pluto first connected with one of these planets, this big run of planets, it would have attached to the moon. And when it connected with the moon, it would have created an emotional issue where this person would have kind of broken down, like their emotions would have been very, very difficult to understand, very, very difficult. They'd have wanted to control their environment because their emotions felt under attack. And that would have gone on for a few years. That's a very difficult aspect to go through. And it makes you doubt yourself a lot. And it also makes the person really controlling all of a sudden. Like their emotional control is absolutely vital. Then Pluto would have gone over Venus, which would have had a knock-on effect on friendships and being pleasing as a person. They would have gone through a very disagreeable phase and probably would have fallen out with a lot of their support structures. Then as Pluto went over the ascendant, that would have created an issue with the image, who they are and where they are and what's going on. Now, I know that Pluto got to this point in 2006, which would have made that person about 20. So this really makes us question who we are and what we're doing and why we're in the place we're in. And then literally the same year, just a little bit after, it's on Uranus and it's talking about splits and how life is just very unstable. And so on and so forth. And so it's kind of attacking all the main part of the chart. It feels like it's under attack. And there's not really any respite because the moment it's left one and moving towards the other, it's starting the next drama. And each of these dramas, because Pluto moves so slowly, each of these dramas is lasting 2 to 3 years. And you also have to factor in the fact that Pluto spends most of his time appearing to go backwards, retrograde. That's when you see a little R next to, is there a retrograde? Like Chiron's retrograde here, Jupiter's retrograde here. So Pluto would go over the moon and they would experience this deep emotional intensity and need for control and being very, very upset and almost like devilish. And then Pluto would go back over the moon and then they would experience the whole set of feelings again, but from a different perspective as it comes back and then goes forward again. So it's a very troubling time. And so this whole period would have taken 15 to 20 years to 15 years to get through. And obviously during that time, they would also have Uranus go over their North Node, which is about their sense of direction and their fate. Neptune would also go over their North Node. And they've also had a Saturn return. So this person who is highly talented has, for all intents and purposes, had a lot of ups and downs and would likely feel like a victim. Now, why would they feel like a victim? Because a lot of this is, during that time, Pluto would have also gone opposite Chiron. It's very, very difficult when Chiron is badly aspected. When Chiron is in a positive aspect, it shows a really strong ability to heal and to understand and to seek to understand and to receive blessings and to receive healing. When Chiron is in strong oppositions and doesn't really want to work with anything in a healing capacity, then these people tend to go through a lot of hassle. The good news for the person of this chart is that Pluto is now here, and by the time it gets to their Mercury, which is in a few years' time, that's really the last pass that they're going to experience in the early part of their life. And by early, I mean before midlife. So it feels like their life has been a struggle and quite dramatic. And then literally just as Pluto has kind of moved away and is now getting closer to this area, once it's past Mercury, this person is almost going to learn some calm, learn how to cope with those intense emotions. And those intense emotions shouldn't be triggered as much as they have been. So it's almost like the environment that this person has lived in has created so much trauma. But I've come across the charts of quite a few people born in the same week before, and the reactions can be very different. And just the difference in the moon can make a huge heap of difference. So let's have a look at the next chart that I want to share with you. Now, this person is also born on the same day. Just the time is different and the place. Now, in this one, I'm going to make it a bit larger, in fact, if I can. I'll just move my... Okay, now what you'll see here is the moon isn't in such a tight conjunction with Venus. Now the moon is in a tighter conjunction actually with Uranus. Now the moon and Uranus together come up in the charts of people with very disruptive emotional energy, and people who are rabble rousers, people that actually quite like a bit of a fight sometimes, and they get on all right without needing to get on with everybody. So they can be quite disagreeable and also hugely changeable as well. And so it's not a peaceful moon. It's really not peaceful at all. So they've got a similar situation. Now, one of the benefits of this chart that the other chart didn't have is that Pluto, in the time that they've been born, it didn't go over the ascendant. So like when something goes over the ascendant, it feels deeply personal because it affects the body and how we appear. This person would have had, at birth, Pluto would have gone over their descendant first, but it would have happened quite early on in their life. And so it shows a separation of some kind, but then it has moved on. So there was some early trauma, followed by a recurrence of that trauma in the late teens, early 20s. So that's quite tricky. Now, I have known many successful people that have worked with the Pluto energy, but one of the reasons that they work well with it is that there is enough respite from these difficult aspects, and they're prepared to use those and develop those. So with the change of the time and the place, this birth chart has got tighter and less respite-y. I guess one of the good things is that Jupiter is now on the ascendant, very close to the ascendant, showing that this person is actually quite magnificent. And also Mercury in the position of very close to the midheaven is an indication of writing skills and communication skills. So this person could use this tremendous energy to propel themselves forward, but only when they really get over the trauma. What I often find with with Chiron energy is if the healing that we need to sort of experience gets locked in place, or if the trauma gets locked in place, it's really difficult. If you're not surrounded by people that might be able to facilitate you from an early age, it can become just a lifelong habit. So yeah. Interesting. So let's move on to the next image. I think I've got to make this smaller again. Just 1 second. So let's have a different look at a different chart. So this is another chart. Now again, this has got Chiron in oppositions. Here's Chiron down here. It's interesting. Chiron looks like a key that's been turned on its side. And I think Chiron's actually quite magnificent because whilst Chiron shows where we're hurt, it also shows where we're magnificent. And when people learn to use their Chiron well, they can become really gifted teachers and really gifted at sharing. There's a lot of healers with a very strong Chiron, but most people that get into healing and therapy, they don't do it by accident. They usually do it because they need to heal themselves first. So Chiron's really good. Chiron is also one of these asteroids that is highly revered by different types of astrologers. There's a type of astrology called Magi astrology, and they love Chiron. And in particular, have noticed that when Chiron is well disposed or aspecting, your birth planets. So, for instance, Chiron here is in quite a tricky place at this time that I brought this up. Which would have been a few years ago because Chiron is only at the start of Aries here. Currently, Chiron's about here, I think. But yeah, Chiron can show when we have some magnificent breaks in our life. So this is a kind of similar picture, only this time the person has got their moon in a conjunction with Chiron. That's really tricky as well, because the moon, the emotions are definitely really hurt. With the other person we were looking at, it's almost like the emotions are shut off from the hurt. So there's almost like a safety catch so that no more hurt can take place. And so that person is able to protect themselves from the growing emotions. Whereas this person here feels everything. Absolutely feels everything with Chiron so close to the moon. And it's possibly something that you get from the mum because the moon represents the mother. and the child. So this is very strong. And the moon is also in a conjunction with home. And Chiron is also in the house of the home. So that's an indication of past pain related to childhood. And it's showing up here. Now, the difficulty for this person is the Sun and Mercury and Mars, which are really great planets, personal planets that show fortitude and communication and lots of personality, especially in the sign of Aries, is in the 10th house of career. So this person has lots of great ideas and actually could absolutely put something together and knock it out the bag, you know. However, they absolutely need to be able to understand how to work with their emotions, because their emotions are really intense. Now, one thing I like about this person's chart is that Chiron and the moon are in a useful connection with Uranus. The moon is in a useful connection with the descendant. Chiron, well, the moon's in a sextile to Pluto. So they are also agents of change as well. So this person's a lot more changeable. They're a lot more prepared to change their style and to try something out in comparison to before. And so this person also has a lot of talent. So there's a grand trine here. It's involving the ascendant rather than a third planet. But you've got Pluto connecting in a trine to Saturn, in a trine to Mars, and also in a trine to the midheaven. This person is full of talent, and actually, as they release their talent, that also helps them release, you know, their pain. So this is quite an interesting chart. However, at times when a planet goes over here, in particular a slow-moving planet goes here, it impacts these, triggers these, because this person's got a T-square, which is literally a right angle triangle. It automatically activates this, and then automatically is in opposition to these planets. So just one stray planet, for instance, they haven't had Pluto go over it. They've had Saturn go over this area when they were around about age 14. Saturn would have gone around this, and it would have triggered a lot of hurt and upset. It would have triggered massive thoughts about their place in the world and their need to achieve. And so that would have been a really big event when Saturn went over this. And then very recently, in the last couple of years, we've had Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter go over this Jupiter here. And when they all went over this, again, all of these planets and all of these planets have been triggered, really triggered. And if you think these are so close to the IC, you know, the angle to do with the house and the childhood and the home, and here about achievement and recognition and our feeling of being a worthy individual. So again, these are difficult times because this person's astrology has got such a strong square and opposition pattern. There are going to be some really deep and troubling times, and I suspect that as this person gets older and older, it will just get easier. The good news is Uranus is over here now, but Neptune is going to be in a bit of a tricky place for them. But Pluto probably is going to give them a bit of a break. It will go over the descendant and Uranus and Neptune, and then they're going to have a bit of a break. So this is an example of a chart that has tons of talent, loads and loads of opportunity, but almost doesn't know how to make it work for them. So I really, really hope that you know, anyone with a chart like this is able to always see the positives and to realise that, in fact, they've got like a mystic rectangle in there. They've got so many different patterns. They've got an envelope. They've got so many special patterns in there. There's so much that they could achieve, and they need to get used to this. That's very tricky. The moon Chiron is very tricky. Next chart then. So here we've got another Moon and Uranus chart. So again, they're in a conjunction. The Moon is our emotions. And so when the Moon is tight against an outer planet, it creates some really big stresses. My Moon is in a very tight conjunction with Ceres, the dwarf planet to do with motherhood, and also Jupiter. So all issues to do with motherhood and my ability to thrive and grow and to feel magnificent have all been a tricky one for me, and I get emotional about it. But where my Moon is positioned is so much easier than a Moon in a conjunction with Uranus. But the kinds of people that have their Moon in Uranus are also very exciting in ways that I'm not. And so there are swings and roundabouts. Now, this person also has a very strong opposition with Chiron. And they've got their Moon in opposition with Chiron and their Uranus in opposition with Chiron. They've also got quite a lot of talent as well. And they've got a very strong Pluto on the ascendant. They absolutely need control. I come across a lot of people who absolutely need control. And when they can't find control, they might end up with very controlling people around them. So there's a very strong control bias in the lives of people with Pluto very close to their ascendant. Their life is one of control or be controlled. And there's almost like no middle ground. It's very difficult for them to yield. And so when you've got that difficulty in yielding and also have got a very disorganized and chaotic and changeable emotional state, it's very difficult. But this person is very magical. They've got a trine to the sun. Their sun is in a conjunction with Saturn. That's an interesting one because there's a sort of bleed on what it's like to be an effective adult. So this person might take on extra responsibility or be extra strict about things. So they're very kind of serious about their personality. So they've got lots of natural talent, a very rebellious streak, and a very strong need to be on control, but also be very authoritarian. And if they were able to funnel that energy, that need to be sort of authoritarian and organized into something that's not their personal life, they could probably have a lot more fun with it. Like if they had a job where they needed to like a job where logistics were important and where they could grow something and be in charge of something, I think that would be really good. But where they're not able to control their outer world, then all the focus comes on their inner world, which is all well and good. However, as we can see here, Chiron right now is right on the angle to do with partnerships, and Chiron's very slow moving, and it's going to go forwards and then it's going to go backwards before going forwards again. So this person's having a few passes of Chiron over this very, very difficult part. Then a couple of years later, it's going to be over where Chiron, they're going to have their Chiron return. That's a time when, if we're still hurt and we've not managed to let go of our childhood issues, when we get to live them again in the same order. So as Chiron comes back here, anything that we didn't clear from the first time Chiron was in opposition to us, to our moon, as a very small baby in this person's case, the same feeling of helplessness is likely to come up. So yeah, these are very, very difficult things. But this person has got lots of outlets, and the pattern isn't so strong. You know, this person has lots of ways out, and is also very resourceful. Yeah, so that's another kind of chart, an easier one to manage than the former 3 charts that we've looked at. Now, what have we got here? Now, this, I have to say, my heart goes out to people born in the years between 64 and 67, because they have this very strong pattern. And I mentioned this in the aspects video. So the guys born between these times have a conjunction between Pluto and Uranus, and also between Saturn and Chiron. That's difficult. Now, in particular, in 1966, Pluto and Uranus get to their tightest space, and also Saturn and Chiron also get to their tightest space. Thankfully for this person, they're not at the tightest moment of this whole period of time. But they do have it quite bad. This is the first time I've ever seen in anyone's chart, in all the years I've been practicing astrology, I've never, ever seen something at the exact same degree. So if you see here, the moon is at 2147 degrees and Chiron is at 2147. They are exactly in the same place. And if you remembered what I said about the moon and Chiron before, Chirons are hurts and pains from childhood and our ability to turn it around to become a massive healer and be amazing and resourceful and to be able to heal others. So it's the wounded healer, he who is wounded but is still able to help heal others. And the moon, well, that's our emotions, that's our innocence, that's our grace. That's that part of us that is absolutely begging to be loved and needing to be looked after. Imagine our inner child. This is somebody whose inner child doesn't find much relief, and they're also their inner child doesn't find much relief, and they have to kind of manage their energy. That's why Saturn's there. So they almost have to be cold or cut themselves off, because to experience it fully just feels like death. And to trigger it off, Pluto is 179 degrees away from the moon. So it is almost in an exact opposition, which gives those emotions, that hurt inner child, it's almost given no place to go at all. Now the Pluto-Uranus conjunction, this is the need for utter control and personal strength. And Uranus is, I need absolute full independence. So people born in these times, in particular between 64 and 67, they are born with the programming of, to have control, I need to be free. The best way I get control is by not committing, or the best way I can feel in control is to break commitments and to move from one life to another to another. I'm pretty sure, I haven't checked this out, but a lot of my clients actually have this pattern. I'm pretty sure that this will be a generation that either had the first lot of parental divorces, i.e. their boomer parents or their old boomer parents would have been some of the first outliers of having divorces. But this generation, I suspect, had the most amounts of breakups and difficult divorces. This is a very, very difficult thing, because to remain free and to be in control, they have to be free, and their inner child, represented by Chiron, needs to be kept away. So like they're separating their inner child and also breaking up from any kind of situation that might threaten their inner child into healing even. So it's very difficult for them to heal, but it's not impossible. But this is very tight with this moon exactly on Chiron. So once again, every time a slow moving planet goes over this point here, all of this is triggered. Now, for this person's birth chart, they've got this beautiful, really beautiful, sensitive, creative side, really beautiful. Neptune on the midheaven, that's an ability to transcend feeling and love and beauty as a job. It's a very creative. You often find musicians and singers and dancers with or actors with this lovely Neptune on the midheaven. This is somebody who actually could get into healing arts as well. So this person has a very sort of soulful, connected being. So even though they're going through this inner turmoil all the time, they also have this really strong belief in something bigger than themselves, which if you remember at the start when I was looking at the first person's chart, I was saying, one of the problems for them is they don't believe in anything outside of themselves. They're so rational, that anything spiritual is lost on them. Whereas this person can at least make sense of what's going on by her or his spirituality. And their creativity as well. So it's not just Neptune's position here or its beautiful sextile to Uranus. This person could put their hands to anything, but also the moon and Chiron. This person wants to love so badly. It's really beautiful. Where we are right now, I just brought up some random aspects just to show that you can have lots of different scenarios coming up at the same time. And, for some people, just because of the way their chart is formed, they might have Pluto coming into a conjunction with their ascendant and Saturn coming into the conjunction with their midheaven, and then something significant going on here. And for this person, there was a big run up as well. So yes, this person has a really great ability to be able to heal themselves. Should they wish to. So even, at a time when Pluto was crossing the ascendant and Saturn in the lead up to that would have also been around, Saturn would have gone first over the midheaven and then Pluto. There was a lot of different things that would be going on at the same time. Neptune, I know right now, is at 21 degrees in the sign of Pisces. Ouch, is all I can say. Having Neptune here, that's very, very difficult. And I know right now, a lot of people born in that generation are having Neptune experiences. Now, Neptune is currently in a trine with their natal Neptune. So the people of 64 to 67 are going through a really creative renaissance right now, which is amazing. And because of this person's actual position of the moon, their experience of this creative renaissance is going so much deeper than anybody else's. They absolutely feel everything. You got to love them. What a chart, eh? Now, this is a chart. I wanted to show you a bit of an easier chart, but even easy charts have difficulties. This person's planets are very sort of well spread out. And so when an outer planet goes over a sensitive part of the chart, it's less likely to trigger difficulties. This person is also born in the same generation. I think this person is born in 65. And this person's Pluto and Uranus are really, really close. That's a very tricky one. And you can see Chiron and Saturn are together. But because this person's sun and moon are kind of out of this program, it's almost like they survive without needing to really touch on this aspect. This is more a kind of outer sort of generational thing that doesn't touch them so deeply. They are born at the time of the full moon, however, so they are quite emotional. But because it's spread out, it means when one planet goes over something, it's not creating a massive catastrophe for them. In fact, when a planet will go over this point or this point, it's also going to be relaying good energy to these planets here, down to here, up to the Sun and Mercury. And if you think about it, the Sun, Mercury, Venus and Mars, there are personal planets. So these outer planets here of Neptune, Pluto and Uranus, and, Saturn's not an outer planet, but it's not an inner planet. It's a kind of bridge. Chiron is also a bit of a bridge as well. But if something goes over here, it almost takes the message of the outer world, the outer consciousness, the consciousness of outside of themselves, and it brings them gifts into their inner world. How wonderful is that? That's an easier chart. And then this is mine, which looks quite ordinary by comparison. But you can see I've also got this line up here, which in my lifetime has caused me some problems. I do have Pluto lagging behind. So in my life, Pluto has gone over my Uranus, my ascendant, and all these planets. Right now, it's here. It's not causing me any problems. But when it got to here, over my Venus, my life changed. And all of a sudden, all the sort of issues of the past kind of melted away. And since then, it's been kind of plain sailing, I have to say. So that is an example of real life where most of the life takes place in the first chapters of your life. And then as you get older, you pass through those lessons. Oh, I've got lessons to come, as I'm sure Pluto will come to this later on in my life. And I will have my Chiron return, because we all have that. Right now, I've got a very tricky, and this has been going on for a while, a very tricky Uranus over my the angle to do with relationships. That's been really interesting. I think I'm going to record something on that as a separate thing. So, we are always going to have different things. But thankfully, in my chart, I've got quite a few trines, which really help, and some sextiles, which also really help. And the really difficult thing for me is my T-square, which is quite difficult, in particular my square between Venus and Pluto, then up to Saturn and back down, that's a T-square. And then it's difficult for me. It's not, I definitely have a better and easier life than some of the charts I've looked at, but Mars and Neptune in a conjunction in a square to my moon and Jupiter. So anyway, that's my little look through how some charts seem to get more trouble than others. And I hope that was helpful. Okay, so you've listened in, and hopefully that's helpful. You might see some of these patterns in your own chart. In particular, if you're born during 64 to 67, you might understand a little bit more of your own chart from that perspective. If you've got things connected to Chiron and to Saturn in particular, you might notice that when you've had difficult times, it's like not only one planet will be impacted, but many planets will be impacted at the same time. So there's lots going on when you look at the patterns. So hopefully it's helpful. If I can help you in your own life and understanding your own chart a little bit more, then please do just reach out to me. It's Louisa at feelgoodastrology.com, or just book a session from my website, which is www.feelgoodastrology.com/store. So anyway, we're pretty much at the end of this course now. The next video, this was a bonus one that I just slipped in at the end, because I thought we really need to understand why some charts have a harder time than others. But anyway, the next and last video that I'm supplying in this free online course is an example reading of how I would read the chart of Evelyn Thomas. So the ladies, the mythical person that I set up an imaginary chart for, I'm going to start doing a reading for. I'm not doing a full one, but just to show you how I use my astrology skills and the steps I go through when I'm reading. So stay tuned for that one, and congratulations for getting this far. I hope you're finding it really useful. And also bear in mind some of the other courses that I'm going to write and other bits. If you want to learn more about your love life, about your marriage, your work, your direction, when to buy or move a house, there's so much that we can look at astrologically. So from Solomon and I'm going to bid you farewell. Bye for now. Take care.